Welcome back to the Return to Her podcast. I'm Cassie Dalton, an experienced yoga teacher, energy worker, and wellness coach who is passionate about helping women like you reconnect with their true selves and thrive in all areas of life. Even though I'm still doing the work on my own wellness and spiritual path, my mission now is to guide you in reigniting your inner spark and living in alignment with the unique calling of your soul by honoring your whole being. Together, let's create a pathway to empowerment, balance, and authentic living. Your journey starts here, and I am so excited to support you every step of the way. Together, let's return to her. Hi again, everyone. Welcome back into the Return to Her podcast. Today's episode is all about feeling the fear and doing it anyway. Fear keeps so many of us from stepping into the life that we're meant to live. It tells us to stay safe, to stay small, and convinces us to avoid risk. But here's the truth. Growth doesn't happen in comfort zones. I'm reminded of one of my favorite songs. One of the lyrics goes, "The ship is always safest at the shore, but that's not what it's built for." That's not what you're built for either. And in this episode, we will unpack fear, why it shows up, how it holds us back, and the ways that you can move through it and move out of it when needed. I'll share my personal story about facing fear in this very podcast, how fear blocks our creativity, and why even 15 seconds of radical courage can change your life. We'll explore practical tools to help you regulate your nervous system, build resilience, and shift from fear into creativity so that you can live the life you've always dreamed of. Before we begin, I want to remind you that the information shared in this episode is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for medical or mental health advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for guidance specific to your individual needs. Hi, guys. Welcome back. I'm so happy that you're here today because we are diving into a topic that touches all of us: fear. I want to start by sharing a moment that happened to me very recently where fear had me paralyzed. It was about a week ago when I pressed publish on my second episode of this podcast, my origin story. That episode for me was very personal because I shared parts of my story that I hadn't even shared with the majority of people I know, including my parents. My chest felt tight. My stomach started to churn. The self-doubt crept in. What if this is too much? Or what if people will judge me? What if I regret sharing this later? Or, the scariest one of all, what if I put my heart out there and no one even listens? No one even cares. And this was all for nothing. But I did it anyway. I reminded myself of something one of my teachers has said over and over again. It only takes 15 seconds of radical courage to change your life. Just 15 seconds. So I took a deep breath, I pressed publish, and I still had a few seconds left over to scream into my pillow. Just kidding, kind of. And even after I had done that scary thing, my nervous system was all keyed up for the rest of the day. Those original expressions of my fear just kept resurfacing. But that small act of bravery led to meaningful conversations and deeper connections with some of my clients and listeners. And as one of my friends reminded me, I didn't explode. I didn't die. I'm still here to record and publish yet another episode. Proof that fear doesn't have to control us. So I wanted to take a moment and talk about why fear shows up and why those manifestations of fear can continue to stick around for a while after the perceived threat is over. Fear, simply put, is your ego's way of keeping you safe. So your ego loves the comfort zone. It knows how to navigate the familiar. But when you start to stretch a little bit more, when you start to dream a little bit bigger and take what the ego perceives as a risk to your identity, It panics. It sees the unknown as dangerous territory and it starts to sound alarm bells. I'm coming to understand that the root of fear for most of us is really our fear of rejection, of not belonging. Not only that, the fear that holds most of us back from reaching out for our dreams is the fear that if you do and if you succeed, you're going to outgrow your current life. And that's scary, just like I talked about in my origin story. That idea is terrifying because up to this point, that's how you have defined yourself. So let me walk it back for a moment. Fear isn't inherently a bad thing, it is trying to protect you. But the ego does not understand that growth does require discomfort. It requires you to stretch and move into the unfamiliar, which it doesn't like. The ego doesn't know the difference between real danger and that stretch of trying something new, even if it's something that you know deep down you want to experience on your path to becoming who you're meant to be. So, fear shows up in a lot of different ways, both body and mind. For example, if you are experiencing fear as a form of self doubt, your ego might say things like, "Who do you think you are to do this?" If you experience procrastination, that links back to fear. The whole, let's wait until everything's perfect before I do it, or let me wait until I'm ready. And guess what? You're never going to be ready, by the way. So you just have to do it anyway. The fear of indecision. What if I make the wrong choice? That's a big one that hangs me up. And also the overthinking, the endless play of what if scenarios that come parading through your mind. Some physical signs of fear, like I mentioned before, is that tightness in the chest, or maybe you notice you're starting to kind of collapse inward at the heart space. You might feel that gnawing or churning in the stomach, or even almost like butterflies, that nervous feeling. The racing heart, shallow breathing. Sometimes it's sweaty palms or trembling hands, and just feeling frozen in general, like you can't physically or mentally move forward. But growth requires discomfort. It doesn't happen within our comfort zone. It happens when we lean into the discomfort and take our imperfect action, trusting ourselves. Remember, the ship is safest at the shore, but that's not what it's built for, and neither are you. So, how do we move through fear when it comes up? First of all, remember and keep reminding yourself and have friends that will remind you. Thankfully, I have a few that reminded me this past week that when fear comes up at times that it's not actually necessary to keep you alive in this moment, it's because you're doing something that is important to your growth, because the ego perceives that as a threat to its existence and your survival as the you that you are right now. Secondly, start to regulate your nervous system. Learn how to do it now so that you can do it in the moment that fear starts to creep in, and you can continue to do it to move the fear out of your body. When fear activates your sympathetic nervous system, your fight, flight, freeze response, your body needs reassurance that you're safe. And here are some practices that I use, and I teach them often in my yoga classes as well as with private clients. So my favorite one is alternate nostril breathing, or Nadi Shodhana. This is one of my go-to techniques for myself, and I know a lot of my yoga students really love it as well. To do this one, you're literally just alternating your breath between one nostril and the other, but there's a little bit of a pattern to it. So try to sit up nice and tall, and then just very gently close off your right nostril. Remember, be gentle with yourself in this process, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So gently closing off your right nostril, you're going to inhale nice and deeply through that left nostril. Pause at the top. As you exhale, close off the left nostril and open the right. So your exhale is coming only through the right side. That's halfway of one cycle. So now with your next inhale, you're inhaling through that right nostril. At the top, you're closing it off, opening the left and exhaling out. That is one full cycle. Again, it's inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right, inhaling through the right, exhaling through the left. This is a great one to do for 8 to 12 cycles, or you might set a timer and do it for just a couple of minutes. It's crazy how even a few minutes of this practice can change the course of your entire day. Another practice that I've just learned recently myself, and boy, does it make a vast difference, is a variation of interrupted breathing. So, for this one, again, trying to sit up nice and tall if possible. Take 2 sharp inhales through your nose and then 1 long exhale through the mouth. And do that again for several rounds. 2 sharp inhales through the nose and then 1 long exhale through the mouth. Do it until that fear starts to move out of you. Some other ways that you can help to regulate your nervous system in real time are grounding techniques like pressing your feet into the floor and imagining roots growing from your feet into the earth. If you're sitting in a chair or on the floor, however your sits bones are making contact with the surface beneath you, visualize them also growing roots into that surface. Another grounding technique is to place a hand on your heart and a hand on your belly and breathing deeply into these spaces. When I do this with my yoga students, we breathe first into the belly and pause for a moment, breathing in again into the heart center, pausing, and then finally releasing that big exhale out nice and slowly. So this is like that practice I mentioned before, those 2 inhales and 1 long exhale, except this one is much slower. We're trying to go through the nose if possible, and you're making that physical connection with your heart and those lower chakras. Another really great way just to move the fear through your body is to shake out your hands, stretch your body, flow through a few gentle yoga poses if you practice yoga. Any movement basically that you can do will help to release fear from the body. Have you ever seen a dog when it gets really startled and it starts barking or it gets really, really agitated? And then once it recognizes that the threat is no longer there, what'll it do? Most of the time, it's going to shake out its body just to release those stress hormones so that it can move on about its happy dog day. A final suggestion that I am going to put out here is to simply connect with nature. Step outside. Wherever you live, you're going to find nature, if nothing more than looking up at the sky and observing the clouds. If you live near trees or flowers, then notice the way that the light is coming through those leaves. Notice the color of the flowers. You can focus on the feel of the breeze touching your skin, even this time of year when it's really cold outside. And sometimes actually that's better because that cold stimulus kind of shocks your nervous system and interrupts that sympathetic response. You can pay attention to the sound of the birds. I think some of you might have heard on my social media, I posted a reel a couple of months ago that when you are outside and listening to birdsong, that automatically calms your nervous system down when it's in a heightened state. Because part of you knows subconsciously that birds only sing when they recognize their surroundings to be safe. So when we hear them singing, that signals to the nervous system that we are also safe. Isn't that crazy? It's almost like we're not actually separate from the rest of nature. The next thing I want you to think about is building resilience over time. So building a regulated nervous system takes consistent practice. Just think of like when you go to the gym. You can't go one time and expect to see the results you wanted. So these practices that I mentioned, they take time to develop. And the more you do them, the stronger you get and the more automatic they become. Just to add on to that list of practical steps you can take, if you're a yoga practitioner, You can focus on heart-opening yoga poses like camel pose, bridge pose, cobra pose. The movement of the body in that heart-opening way can help us to release fear and invite courage in. Plus, having a regular yoga practice means that you're moving your body consistently, you're naturally releasing stress every day, and you're becoming more aware of that internal landscape so that you can better monitor your nervous system and recognize when it needs regulation in real time. I also am a big meditator. Daily meditation helps you get into that place of the non judgmental observer. You can start to become more and more of a witness of what's going on and stop attaching so much to it. You no longer think of yourself as simply a body or simply a mind. You can pull your awareness back and realize you have a body, you have a mind, but there's another aspect of yourself. The more you do that, you can tap into that part of who you are. And that helps with your regulation and to let go of emotions like fear when they're not serving you in the moment. Hand in hand with meditation is journaling. Write your fears down, let them come out. Sometimes we try to hold back and repress, and that just makes the fear stronger. So write it out. Give yourself 5, 10, 15 minutes just to pour your heart out onto the paper and notice what happens. And finally, one that is reaffirmed to me over and over again is the importance of engaging with supportive people in your life. That showed up for me last week when I published my episode, and then I still couldn't release that fear, that self doubt. So I reached out to some of my really good friends. First of all, I don't give everybody access to my heart like that. But I do have a few trusted friends who I know love me unconditionally and always have my back. So I reach out to them. And if you're reaching out to someone for support, be honest. Don't try to be tough or put up a front. Just let them know what you're going through in an honest way so that they can meet you in that place and support you there. Otherwise, it's all a show and it's all for nothing. It won't help at all. All right, so now that we've gone through a couple of strategies for helping to regulate your nervous system in real time and also to keep it regulated through your consistent practices, I wanted to talk for a moment about the idea of fear versus creativity, almost like a toggle effect. So, fear and creativity exist on opposite ends of the spectrum. I'm going to talk more about this on another episode coming up. But the point I want you to know now is that those lower vibrations, in this example, fear, and the higher vibrations, in this example, creativity, they can't exist at the same time. When fear's in the driver's seat, your mind shifts into survival mode, focusing on all the threats and the perceived threats and the worst case scenarios. Creativity, on the other hand, it thrives in openness, in curiosity, spontaneity, the world of infinite possibility. So, in order to get out of a state of fear and to keep yourself more in a state of flow, you have to tap into your creativity. So, here are a couple of ways that we can do that. First of all, the power of visualization. Close your eyes and imagine your best case scenario in vivid detail. How does it feel in your body? What emotions are coming up? The crazy thing is that visualization activates the same part of your brain that lights up when you're actually experiencing success. So you're strengthening those neural pathways. I've already talked about this before, but movement and dance are also very, very important because when you're moving, when you're dancing, it helps to shake off some of that heaviness of fear and create space for more lightness and more flow to come in. Singing and humming are also really, really powerful. The vibrations from your voice calm your vagus nerve, which shifts your body into a state of safety and calm into the parasympathetic nervous system response. You don't have to be a singer. Just hum a tune. Or as we do at the end of all of my yoga classes, we practice chanting. We chant Om Shanti 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 He. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That chant in particular does double duty because the vibration stimulates your vagus nerve. It helps keep your nervous system regulated. And the word Shanti means peace in Sanskrit. So by echoing that vibration, we are reaffirming within ourselves the vibration of peace. Another thing you can do to tap into creativity is to simply let yourself play without any agenda, without any goal. Whatever play looks like to you, by the way. So for me, it's like I said before, creative movement. Sometimes I'll turn on a song and just dance it out. A lot of times I'll do yoga, or not even necessarily yoga, but I'll just move my body to see how different things feel. I create playlists just for the fun of it. Some people like to do adult coloring pages. Ooh, that sounds naughty. Just those coloring books that are geared toward adults. Making up songs and poetry, all of those things actually help you to get out of the analytical and logical, agenda-driven side of the brain and put you into the right brain where you're more creative, you're more open to flow. And really, when we are tapping into creativity in a playful way, that reconnects you to your inner goddess, that part of you that isn't afraid to create for creation's sake. And then a final thing I'll say on this, again, I've mentioned nature before, but stepping outside and observing the world around you, going on a walk if possible. So you're activating not only that connection with nature, but you're moving your body at the same time. By intentionally practicing things that help you tap into the creativity within you, you can loosen fear's grip and reconnect with your higher self pretty quickly. Fear is always going to be part of your journey. It's built into us, but it's not a bad thing. Actually, if you don't do anything in your day that makes you just a little fearful, that creates that little nervousness, that might be a sign that you're just staying stuck in your comfort zone. When you feel that fear, that's a sign that you're stepping into something bigger for yourself. You just don't have to let it hold you back. When fear whispers for you to stay small, remind yourself that you were made for more. You were built for adventure, for growth and expansion, not to stay tied up at the shore. Remember, 15 seconds of radical courage can change everything. So take the leap, trust yourself, and know that you are capable of so much more than you can possibly conceive. It's in those moments of bravery that you discover your strength, your resilience, and your truest potential. So if this episode resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. What is one small, brave step that you can take today to face a fear? It doesn't have to be monumental. Even tiny acts of courage can create a ripple effect through your life and through the lives of those around you. And if you're looking for support to help navigate fear and step into your most aligned and empowered self, visit my website, wholebeingjourney.com. From yoga and Reiki to coaching and access to a free blog, I offer resources to help you transform fear into creativity, courage, and action. Until next time, remember, you are already whole, and everything you need is already within you. Take a deep breath, feel the fear, and do it anyway. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to see you in the next episode of Return to Her. Until then, namaste. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Return to Her. If anything in this episode resonated with you, please leave a review, follow the podcast, and share it. Remember, you can follow me on social media. Instagram is Cassie Dalton XO, and my Facebook page for this podcast is Return to Her Podcast. I also have a page for my business. It's Whole Being Journey. I look forward to interacting with you there. See you soon.